The envelope arrived at 9 in the morning. Kang Jae-won's assistant placed it on his desk without a word. He looked at it for a moment. Then opened it. One card inside. Thick paper. Gold lettering. The kind of invitation that did not ask, it summoned. He read it once. Set it down. Picked up his phone. Do-hyun, he said. The Cheongdam gathering. Did you know about this? It arrived this morning, Do-hyun said. I was going to call you. The requirement, Jae-won said. Is it confirmed? A pause. Yes, Do-hyun said carefully. Every attendee must come with their partner. Verified. The host is very specific about it this year. Why? Because last year 2 people came alone, Do-hyun said. And neither of them left. Jae-won set the card down. Stood up. Walked to the window. Seoul moved below him the way it always did, completely indifferent to the specific problem he was now carrying. He looked at the date on the card. 4 days away. If I don't attend. Not attending is the same as a refusal, Do-hyun said. And a refusal to this particular host. He did not finish. He did not need to. Jae-won turned from the window. He needed someone. Not just anyone. Someone composed. Intelligent. Someone who could walk into a room full of the most dangerous people in Seoul, and make every single one of them believe, without question, that she belonged there. He thought for a long moment. Then picked up his phone. And called Sela. Her phone rang at 9:30. She was reorganizing the filing system in the outer office. A task she had set herself because the previous assistant had left everything in a state that made her quietly furious every single time she opened a drawer. She looked at the screen. His name. He never called her directly. Everything went through Do-hyun. Every request, every schedule change, every instruction, through Do-hyun. That was how it had worked for 14 months. She answered. Sir. Sela, he said. I need to ask you something. It is outside your work scope completely. You can say no. She stopped reorganizing. Okay, she said carefully. He told her about the invitation. The requirement. The host. What not attending would mean for a man in his specific position. She listened without saying a single word. When he finished, you need me to pretend to be your partner, she said. Yes. For one evening. Yes. She looked at the filing cabinet in front of her. At the drawer she had been organizing. At the completely ordinary Tuesday morning she had been having 30 seconds ago. I will compensate you, he said. Significantly. Whatever number you think is fair, I will double it. She said nothing. Sela. I heard you, she said. Her full name was Sela Tades. Ethiopian. 29 years old. In Seoul for 4 years, on a graduate scholarship that had turned into a career she had built with her own 2 hands. She knew the language. She knew the city. She knew how to move through rooms where she was the only person who looked like her, and make everyone in those rooms feel like she had always been there. She had been Kang Jae-won's executive assistant for 14 months. In those 14 months, she had organized his schedule, managed his correspondence, handled every detail of his professional life with the specific efficiency of someone who took pride in being 3 steps ahead of everything. She had done all of it professionally. Quietly. Without ever crossing the line between work and personal. This was very much across that line. She also knew exactly who he was. Not just the man who signed her paychecks. The real version, the one the city whispered about in rooms she was not supposed to be in. The one whose name made certain people go immediately quiet. And she knew, if he was calling her directly, without going through Do-hyun, he was out of options. One evening, she said finally. One evening, he confirmed. And you will owe me, she said. A pause. Yes, he said. I will owe you. I will need to know everything about the people in that room, she said. Their names. Their connections. Their history with you. Everything. I do not walk into a room unprepared. Do-hyun will brief you tomorrow. Then yes, she said simply. She hung up. Looked at the filing cabinet. Then closed the drawer. And went back to work. The venue was in Cheongdam. Private. Quiet from the outside. The kind of building that did not announce what happened inside it. They arrived together. Sela had chosen carefully. Not to impress anyone, but to communicate exactly one thing to every single person in that room: I belong here, and I have always known it. He looked at her when she stepped out of the car. Said nothing. But something in his expression shifted for exactly 1 second, then settled back into the composure he wore everywhere. Ready? He said. Yes. They walked in together. The room was full. Expensive suits. Careful smiles. Conversations happening on 2 levels simultaneously, what was being said out loud, and what was being communicated underneath it. Sela read every person they passed. The ones genuinely curious about her. The ones assessing her for a weakness they could use later. The ones whose eyes asked pointed questions about him while their mouths said something else entirely. She stayed close to him. Spoke when spoken to. Laughed at the right moments. Let her hand rest naturally on his arm whenever someone looked their way. A man approached them. Broad shoulders. A smile that did not come anywhere near his eyes. J1, the man said. I was not sure you would make it this year. Director Lim. J1's voice was easy. I never miss it. Director Lim's eyes moved immediately to Sela. And who is this? Sela Tades, she said, before J1 could speak. She held out her hand. I have heard about you. Lim shook it. Smiled with his teeth. Good things, I hope. Interesting things, she said simply. Lim laughed. Looked at J1 with something close to approval. You have good taste, he said. Then moved away. J1 glanced at her sideways. She looked straight ahead. He tested 2 of your associates last year, she said quietly. Do-hyun briefed me thoroughly. He said nothing. But something in his posture changed, slightly, like a man who had just realized the person beside him was paying attention to things he had not thought to ask her to notice. An hour passed. Then another. Sela worked the room exactly the way a woman who had grown up in it would. Never too eager. Never too distant. Always 1 step ahead of whatever the next conversation required. Then the host stood up. Chairman O. Small. Quiet. The specific quietness of someone who had never needed to raise his voice a single time in his entire life, because everything in the room had already been arranged to make raising it unnecessary. He raised his glass. Tonight we celebrate what makes us human, he said pleasantly. He looked around the room. Every couple will dance. And seal the evening with a kiss. The room began moving toward the floor. J1 did not move immediately. She felt it, the slight stillness in the man beside her, the specific hesitation of someone who had walked into every dangerous room in Seoul without once flinching, and was now standing at the edge of a dance floor, uncertain. He leaned slightly toward her. I need to ask you something, he said quietly. And you can. She had already looked at the room. At the couples moving onto the floor. At Chairman O watching from the front, his eyes moving slowly and deliberately across every pair, reading every gap, every hesitation, every space between 2 people that did not quite close the way it should. She understood immediately what a refusal would look like. What it would signal. What it would cost him. She turned to face him. Don't ask, she said simply. She put her hand on his shoulder. He looked at her for 1 moment. Then took her other hand. And they danced. She had not expected him to be good at it. He was. Completely. The kind of dancer who made whoever was with him feel like they had always known how to move this way, like the music had been written specifically for both of them and everyone else in the room was just filling space. She kept her attention on the room around them. On Chairman O in the corner whose eyes had not left them once. On maintaining the performance. On not thinking about how close they were standing. On not noticing how warm his hand was through the fabric at her waist. She focused on the room. When the music slowed, he looked at her. She looked back. Saw the same hesitation from before sitting in his eyes. The question he did not want to have to ask out loud. She gave him the smallest nod. He kissed her. Soft. Brief. The absolute minimum required. The room believed it completely. Because something in the way she had simply said don't ask, and stepped forward without being told, had felt more real than any performance either of them had planned for this evening. The car ride back was quiet. Not uncomfortable. Just, full of something neither of them was naming. At her building, he reached into his jacket. An envelope. Held it out. She looked at it. Took it. Thank you, he said. You were. Perfect, she said. Not boasting. Just a statement of fact, the way she said most things. She looked at the envelope in her hands for a moment. Good night, sir, she said. She got out. Walked inside without looking back. He sat in the car for a moment longer than he needed to. Then told the driver to go. At his desk that night he tried to work. Could not. He kept seeing her in that room. The way she had read every person without ever being obvious about it. The way she had spoken before he could to Director Lim, and said exactly the right thing in exactly the right tone. The way she had turned to face him on the dance floor, without hesitation, like a woman who had already made a decision, and was simply done reconsidering it. He picked up his phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. Do-hyun, he said when the line connected. Sir. The next gathering, Jae-won said. When is it? A pause. 6 weeks. Same requirement? Yes. Another pause, longer this time. Sir, are you thinking of? Good night, Do-hyun. He hung up. He came to her office the next morning. Not Do-hyun. Him. He stood at her door. She looked up from her desk. Sir. He came in. Sat across from her. Looked at her directly, the same way he looked at every negotiation he had walked into in his entire professional life. There are more gatherings, he said. 6 weeks. Then 2 months after that. Same requirement each time. She looked at him calmly. I want to offer you a formal contract, he said. Separate from your work here. Its own terms. Its own compensation. No, she said immediately. He looked at her. One evening was one evening, she said. I am your assistant. Not a. I know exactly what you are, he said. That is precisely why I am asking you and not someone else. She said nothing. These gatherings, he said. Every person in that room watches everything. If I arrive with someone different each time, or alone, it becomes a conversation I cannot afford. The wrong conversation with the wrong people leads somewhere very specific. She looked at him steadily. And if I say no? He held her gaze. Then I find another way, he said. But there is no other way that works as well as you did in that room. And I think you know that. She studied him. And, she said. There is something else. He looked at her for a moment. I need you to move into the house, he said. Not permanently. But people talk. They watch outside events too. If you only appear at gatherings. They will not believe it, she said. No. She leaned back slightly. You are asking me to leave my apartment. I will cover it, he said immediately. Whatever you are paying, I will maintain it while you are at the house. Your apartment stays exactly as it is. You are not giving up anything. She looked at her desk. At the filing system she had spent 3 days building into something that finally worked properly. At the professional life she had constructed carefully inside these walls. My own room, she said. Already prepared. My working hours do not change. I am still your assistant during the day. This arrangement remains completely separate from my professional role. Agreed. And I can leave, she said. Her voice did not change tone at all. Any time. If anything feels wrong, I walk out. No questions, no penalties, no conversation about it. He looked at her steadily. Yes. You can always leave. She held his gaze for a long moment. Send me the contract tonight, she said. I will read it and let you know in the morning. He stood up. Sila, he said at the door. She looked at him. Thank you, he said. Again. She looked back at her desk. Send me the contract, she said again. The corner of his mouth moved, barely. And he walked out. She moved in on a Friday. One bag. Her books. The small photograph of her mother she kept on every desk and every windowsill she had ever worked and lived beside. The house was large and very quiet. The kind of quiet that had serious money behind it. Staff who moved efficiently and spoke only when necessary. Rooms that were perfect and felt completely unlived in. Everything in its exact place, like a house carefully performing the idea of a home without actually being one. Her room was at the end of the east corridor. Clean. Simple. A window that looked out over a long garden wall. She unpacked in 20 minutes. Saturday morning she was up before anyone else. Made herself tea in the kitchen, the staff were not yet in, and sat at the island going through her work schedule for the coming week. Quiet. Efficient. Completely herself. Then she heard it. A voice. Coming from somewhere down the corridor. Sharp. Impatient. His voice. And then another, quieter, trying to say something, being cut off before it could get anywhere near finished. Sila set her cup down. She walked quietly to the corridor. At the end, a door slightly open. She could see him standing. Back straight. Phone in one hand at his side. Not looking at the woman sitting in the chair across from him. The woman was older. Small. Dressed carefully, the kind of careful that meant she had thought about it that morning, thought about it the night before, probably, like someone who had made a real effort, and was being made to feel like that effort had not been worth the trouble. I told you already, Jae-won said. I don't have time for this today. I just wanted to. Mother. His voice was completely flat. I have a meeting in an hour. His mother pressed her lips together. Looked at her hands in her lap. Said nothing more. Sila stood in the corridor. Something moved through her chest. Something that did not have a neat name. She almost turned around. It was not her business. She was not family. She was an assistant on a separate contract, and whatever happened in this house between a man and his mother was nothing she had any right to be part of. She took 3 steps back toward the kitchen. Then stopped. Stood completely still. Thought about the woman's face. The pressed lips. The hands in her lap. The careful clothes, the whole effort of a morning, that had been dismissed in less than 30 seconds by a man who had not even looked at her properly while he was doing it. Sila turned back around. Walked to the door. Knocked once. Pushed it open. Both of them looked at her. She walked directly to his mother. Stood in front of her. And bowed, deeply, respectfully, the full bow of someone who means every single centimeter of it. His mother looked at her with wide, startled eyes. Jae-won said nothing. Sila straightened. Looked at his mother directly. Good morning, she said warmly. I am Sila. I am sorry to interrupt. His mother looked at her, then at her son, Then back at Sela, with the specific expression of a woman who had not been spoken to with warmth in much longer than she wanted to say out loud. "Good morning," his mother said quietly. Jae-won looked at Sela. She did not look back at him. "Have you had breakfast?" Sela said to his mother. "Not yet." "Then come," Sela said simply. "Let me make you something." She held out her hand. His mother looked at it for a moment. Then took it. And stood up. Jae-won watched the two of them walk out of the room together. Neither of them looked back at him. They sat in the kitchen for 2 hours. Sela made breakfast. His mother ate. And talked. Slowly at first. Testing the air the way people do when they have been quiet for too long and are not yet sure whether the person in front of them is actually listening or just waiting for a pause to speak. Then, all at once. The way people talk when they finally find someone who is genuinely there. She told Sela about the years. How her son had changed. How the warmth she remembered in him had been replaced slowly, bit by bit, by distance. By a version of her son that looked at her the way he looked at everything else, like something to be managed and then set aside. "He was not always like this," she said. "When he was young." She stopped. Looked at her tea. "He used to bring me flowers," she said quietly. "Every Friday. Without being asked. Just, flowers. Whatever was in season. He would put them on the table before I was even awake." Sela looked at her. "When did it stop?" His mother looked at the window. "The same time everything else stopped," she said. "When this world, this business, these rooms, these people, became everything. When there was no more room for anything soft." She looked at Sela then. Really looked at her. "You bowed to me," she said. "His people do not bow to me. They bow to him." She reached across the table. Covered Sela's hand with hers. "Whatever you are to him," she said. "You see people. You actually see them." Sela looked at this woman, who had raised the most feared man in Seoul, and was sitting in his kitchen on a Saturday morning, genuinely grateful for 2 hours of real attention. Sela thought about the photograph of her own mother on the windowsill in her room. The one she carried everywhere. She thought about how far she was from home, and how certain things about mothers were completely identical no matter which side of the world you were standing on. "He is still in there," Sela said. "I think he has just lost the way back." His mother looked at her for a long moment. "Will you help him find it?" she said simply. Sela looked at her hands. Then looked up. "I will try," she said. And she meant it. She found him in his office that afternoon. Knocked once. Walked in without waiting. He looked up from his desk. "Sela. Your mother made an effort this morning," she said. "She dressed carefully. She came here to see you. And you dismissed her in 30 seconds without looking at her face once." He looked at her. "That is. I am not finished," she said. He closed his mouth. She came further into the room. Did not sit. Did not soften her voice. "I am here on a contract," she said. "To help you convince people in a room that there is someone in your life who matters to you. But I sat with your mother this morning for 2 hours. And she told me things that made me understand something I had not understood before." She looked at him directly. "You have forgotten how to treat the people who love you for no reason," she said. "Not because of what you control. Not because of what your name opens. Just you. The actual person underneath all of this." The office was completely still. "If you can treat your mother the way I witnessed this morning," she said, "then you are capable of treating anyone that way. And I cannot live in a house where that is happening and walk past it like I did not see it." He stood up slowly. "Sela. I am going to leave the house," she said. "Not the contract. Not the job. I gave my word and I will honor it. I will attend the next event. But I cannot stay here and watch that and call myself someone with any integrity." She looked at him one final time. Fix it, she said. Not for me. Not for the events or the image or the room full of people watching. For her. And for whatever is left of the man who used to put flowers on the table before his mother was even awake on Friday mornings. She walked out. The door closed behind her. He stood in his office completely alone. Her last words stayed in the room with him, the way certain truths do, sitting in the air and refusing to thin out. He sat back down. Looked at his desk. At the phone in his hand. For a very long time, he did not move. The next gathering came 6 weeks later. She attended. Because she had given her word. But she was different. And everyone in that room felt it. The specific ease that had made people believe them the first time, the quiet certainty of a woman completely, genuinely present, was not there. Something essential was missing. Not visibly. Not in a way anyone could point to directly. But in rooms like that one, where everyone was trained to read exactly what was being communicated underneath the surface, its absence was loud. She stood beside him. Answered when spoken to. Maintained the minimum of what was required. Her laugh, when it came, was half a second late. Her hand on his arm felt like exactly what it was. A performance. He felt every single difference. He tried to focus on the conversations that needed his attention. On the specific reason they were there. On Director Lim across the room who was watching everything. Could not. Because the woman beside him, who had once made every person in a room believe something completely without appearing to try at all, was gone. Replaced by someone going through the motions of a role she had already decided something about. And he had done that. On the drive home, the car was silent. He looked at her profile against the window. At the distance in her eyes. Sila, he said. She turned. He looked at her. I called her, he said quietly. My mother. Last night. She said nothing. We talked for an hour, he said. I could not remember the last time we had talked for that long. Actually talked. She looked at him. She cried, he said. The words came out quietly. Carefully. Like something he was still learning how to hold. I did not know how long it had been. I did not realize until she was crying how much time I had let go. He stopped. Looked at his hands. You were right, he said. About everything. The car moved through Seoul in the dark. I am going back to the house, Sila said. He looked at her. Not because of the contract, she said. Because your mother asked me to come for breakfast on Sunday morning. Something moved across his face. Something small that had no performance in it whatsoever. Okay, he said quietly. She turned back to the window. And for the first time that entire evening, something in her expression settled into something close to peace. Sunday morning. Sila arrived at the house early. His mother was already in the kitchen. She had been waiting, and she did not pretend otherwise. She had set out 2 cups before Sila had even taken off her coat. They cooked together. Ethiopian coffee on one side of the counter. Korean breakfast on the other. The kitchen full of 2 completely different smells that somehow work together perfectly, the way certain things do that have no business working together and do it anyway. His mother laughed at something Sila said. Genuinely. The full laugh of a woman who had momentarily forgotten every single thing she had been carrying for years. Jae-won appeared at the kitchen doorway. Neither of them heard him come. He stood there. Watching his mother laugh. Watching Sila lean in close to show her something, the way she was holding the spoon, the specific angle, their heads almost touching, his mother nodding very seriously, trying it herself, and then laughing again when she got it completely wrong. He stood in the doorway for a long time. His mother looked up. Saw him standing there. And something in her face, when she saw him watching, was not surprise. It was not even happiness exactly. It was the face of a woman who recognized something she had stopped daring to hope for. She did not say anything. She just looked at him. Then looked at Sela. Then back at him. With eyes that said everything that did not require a single word. He stepped back from the doorway. Went to his office. Sat down at his desk and stayed there for a long time. Thinking about flowers. About Friday mornings. About everything he had set down somewhere along the way, without noticing, without choosing to, just setting it down one piece at a time because the next thing always needed both hands, and had just been shown, by a woman who had known him for 14 months, that it was not too late to go back and pick it up. He found her in the garden that afternoon. She was on the bench near the far wall. Reading. Completely unbothered by the size of everything around her, the house behind her, the city beyond that, all of it, like a woman who had decided a long time ago exactly how much space she was going to occupy in the world and was entirely settled in it. He crossed the garden. Sat beside her. She looked up. Did not close her book. He looked at the garden for a moment. "I have been thinking," he said. She waited. "About what you said. About the kind of person I have become without realizing it." She said nothing. "I did not notice it happening," he said. "That is the truth. I did not see it until you walked into that room on a Saturday morning and bowed to my mother like she was the most important person in the entire house." He looked at his hands. "She is. She always was. I just stopped acting like it somewhere along the way and told myself it was because I was busy." Sela looked at the garden. "You called her," she said. "Every day this week." She looked at him. "She told me," she said simply. He looked at her. At this woman who had come into his house on a contract with clean, professional terms. Who had bowed to his mother without being asked and without wanting anything in return for doing it. Who had sat in his kitchen for 2 hours listening to a woman she had just met. Who had walked into his office and told him the truth, with the complete calm of someone who meant every word of it, and had needed nothing from him in exchange for saying it. "Sela," he said. "Yes. I want to marry you," he said. The garden went completely still. "Not because of the events," he said. "Not because of how well you handle a room or what it does for my position. Because you walked into this house and showed me something I had lost the ability to see on my own. Because you sat with my mother when no one else has in longer than I want to count. Because when you told me I was wrong, you were not angry about it. You were just, right. Completely, plainly right." He looked at her directly. "Because I have not felt like myself in years. And every single time you are in a room, I remember who that person was." Sela looked at him for a long, steady moment. Then looked back at her book. "I will keep attending the meetings," she said quietly. "If you still need me to." He looked at her. "That is not what I asked." "I know," she said. "But that is my answer for now." He sat with that. "For now," he said carefully. "For now," she said. She turned a page. Like the conversation had reached its natural conclusion. He looked at her profile. At the complete ease of a woman who knew exactly what she was worth, and was not going to be moved by anything less than something real. Not by a title. Not by the size of a house. Not by the fact that the most powerful man in that city was sitting beside her on a garden bench asking her a specific question. He stood up slowly. "I will keep calling her," he said. "Not because you are watching. Because it is right." She did not look up. "I know," she said. He walked back toward the house. At the door, he stopped. Turned once. She was still on the bench. Still reading. Completely still. Completely herself. He stood there and looked at her for a long moment. Then walked inside. Sat at his desk. Soul outside the window doing what it always did, moving, relentless, completely indifferent to whatever was happening in any given room. He had sat in rooms with dangerous men and made decisions that changed everything without his hands shaking once. He had built something from the ground up that the entire city had felt. He had never, not once, found himself in a situation where he did not know the next move. If Sila's story touched you today, drop a comment below telling us where you are watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.